How's it going, everybody?
Good, and you?
Yeah, fine. I got homework to do soon, sadly.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have a really sucky night tonight. But you know, that's what I signed up. I literally paid money to go to school, so.
Yeah.
Oh, they quit offering it on Steam. That's a huge bummer. Hey, so here's what we're gonna do. We're actually gonna start today off by doing a stock swap. So, can y'all see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're gonna do here, oh my God, I'm having such technical difficulties today. That's why I was a little bit late starting, is we are going to take one of our stocks, we're gonna sell it, and then we're gonna use that money to purchase a different stock. Now, you know, like I mentioned, I don't recommend investing of that nature, as this is simply meant for educational purposes. What we're going to do today is we are going to choose a stock, whichever one you think is doing weakest, which you might want to like look up how your stocks are doing today. And we are going to choose a stock. We are going to sell it at current market value. And then we are going to use that money in order to purchase another stock. And of course, with my own little example project that I'm keeping alongside yours, we're going to do this together, yeah? So let me go ahead and switch back to my spreadsheet. And we're gonna do our daily thing of updating our stock values. So everybody bust out the Excel sheet with your stock project in it. We're going to do an update for today. Yeah, so y'all can see my spreadsheet. Yep. I'll make it a little bit bigger so that it's easier to read, yeah. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna right click this guy and I'm going to duplicate this homie. And it just takes 415 and it makes a copy of 415. So I'm gonna rename that 416 in order to keep track of what we're doing today in our spreadsheet. And let's say, or I'm sorry, the first thing that we have to do before we buy or sell anything is we need to update our current stock value for the day. Of course, if you were actually, you know, doing this with an investment app or whatever, all of this is automatic. But nonetheless, yeah, go ahead, take your stocks, take a few minutes, look up their current value, figure out how much money you lost or gained.
Mr. Rob?
Yep.
You know how you said if one of our stocks are doing bad, like we should switch it out, but what if we don't have any bad ones? Do we still have to switch it out?
I would still like you to sell a share, yeah, just so that you go through this procedure.
So it doesn't have to be the whole stock, right? I could just sell a couple of them and just have spending money, basically?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. You could sell some, you could sell, yeah, so for any given one, you could sell some of the shares or you could not sell them, you know, it's up to you.
All right.
Mr. Rob, it won't let me duplicate the second page.
No, it will. You right-click it and you hit duplicate.
They're all grayed out. The only thing I can do is copy two.
That's because for some reason no, that's okay. If you take a document and you turn it into me, it becomes mine. That's what the problem is. So because you took that Google sheet and you shared it with me, you're viewing the copy of it that belongs to me, like account-wise, but you should still have the original version of it in your own Google Drive. Okay. That's the one that you need to open and edit. Yeah.
Mr. Rob, I requested edit access, and
you shouldn't have to because it's not my sheet, it's yours. It's the same thing that I just explained. Open your original, not the one that you turned into me.
Okay.
Okay, so I've actually, I've actually gained money since yesterday. I'm up 1.5% from yesterday. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm not, because I forgot to update one other thing. Also, when you bring the sheet over, you also need to update whatever it said for yesterday's value. So on the 15th, my total investment was 9977.63. So I need to go to my new sheet and update that. I mean, I guess it's my thing, so it's my job to like mute everybody, but you should all know that when you come in, your microphones are unmuted, so we can hear like whatever's going on in the room you're in. When you come into a Zoom meeting, make sure your microphone is muted, children. Nonetheless, my value of my like portfolio that I set up was this yesterday. So in your new sheet, you always need to type that in. You'll have to type in yesterday's value so that it does your changes properly. 9977.63. So yesterday I was down 1.4%. No, sorry, I was down less than 1%. And hey, what'd you know? Today I'm up 1.7%. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. And so here's what I'm going to do in order to keep track of the swap that I'm about to do. And again, you know, smart investing is you hold on to stuff over long periods of time. Day trading is you trade as prices fluctuate in the market to try and skim out a little bit of profit here and there and cash out when you're up. This is just like an example of what one of these transactions would look like. So let's go ahead and say I don't trust Tesla, so I'm going to sell that off. Yeah.
Wait, Mr. Robinson. After we do the swap, can we swap back?
Like if you like the set of investments that you have right now.
Well, yeah, because overnight it made it about $1,000. So if I wanted to swap back just to keep that like good amount going.
I mean, if you like the stock that you have, don't sell the one that you like. Just sell a different one then.
Okay.
Okay. So let's say I don't trust Tesla, right? So I'm going to sell off my shares of it. So all I'm going to do to keep track of that is over here to the right. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make note of the fact that I'm selling Tesla today. And then when I sell that off, right, I'm going to sell off all of these amounts. I'm going to sell off all 4 shares, which means that I'm going to gain 2,900. I'm sorry. I'm going to sell Tesla, which is going to net me $2,950 of cash, which I can then spend elsewhere. So now that I've taken note of the fact that I sold it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete that. Delete, right? Which means that in terms of the total amount of money I have invested, it's now this amount. And of course, that's going to throw off all of my daily changes, percent changes, all that stuff, because I basically converted that stock back into cash. Now, in order to figure out how much money I have total, I'm going to type in cash on hand. Because if y'all remember, right, unless you were somehow able to find a way to spend exactly all of your $10,000, you would have ended up with a little bit of extra cash on hand left over from that first day. I had $4.09 saved from that first day. So I'm going to go ahead and type in $4.09. And I'm going to add that up with a sum function to say that, okay, well, now the amount of cash that I have to spend is actually $2,954.89. So now that I have this money taken out, I'm going to reinvest it immediately. And I already chose a stock, except I have a billion trillion tabs open, so I'll never find it. Yeah, what's up?
If I have, like, okay, for one of my stocks, I have 81 shares in it. Can I sell half of them?
Yeah, totally. Just keep track of how many shares you're selling and then update everything accordingly. So if you sell 40 of them, do the stock value times 40. That's how much cash you have now. And then all you have to do in the Excel sheet is change the quantity to the new correct number, and then it'll automatically update how much money you still have as stake in the company.
Only in today, right? Not the past days?
Yeah, only today.
Okay.
Yeah. So all of the
Sorry,
past
Mr. Rob.
pages, after we copy them up, they're basically locked because it's a history of what business was done that day. Yes?
For the daily change every day, yesterday's value is going to be that day's total investment, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then we just subtract the 2 automatically. Okay, cool. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mr. Rob,
Yep.
could you show the cash on hand and the selling formula?
So that stuff's not a formula. So all I
No,
did
the
when I
one
sold
under
off,
it. The
oh, just
additional
equals sum.
equal sum of the two.
Equals
Okay.
sum parenthesis, yeah, and then I just highlighted these two because the amount of cash that I have right now to play with is what I had left over plus the amount of money that I got by selling off Tesla. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to do a thing which a lot of people are speculating on right now, which again, I don't recommend you do this with your money or with your parents' money. This is all just for example. I actually kind of hope this blows up in my face as a cautionary tale, only because this is happening in a spreadsheet and not in my actual investing accounts, right? A thing that a bunch of people are doing right now is they're basically trying to place bets on which company makes the COVID-19 vaccine. And, you know, there's a bunch of companies working on it, but whichever one does it becomes rich, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead and make a common bet. I'm going to take all of the money that I pulled out of Tesla and I'm going to put it into Novavax, which is currently trading at $17.92. So let's say that I purchase a bunch of Novavax at $17.92. And I'm just going to dump all of the money that I can into it. So I have $2,954 to spend. So I'll go ahead and take out my good old handy dandy calculator. And if I have $2,954.89, and I am purchasing a bunch of stock, which is valuated at $17.92, I can purchase 164 shares of it before I run out of money. And of course, you just cut that decimal off because rounding up would put us over our cash cap. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back to my Excel sheet. I'm afraid I'm teaching you guys bad stuff, but you know, this is why we learn math, right? I'm going to purchase 164 shares of this. Oh, and I accidentally deleted my total value. So this is going to be equal to the number of shares, then multiplied by the current value. So I just spent $2,938 on shares of Novavax. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to update my cash on hand to its new value. So now my new cash on hand, so cash left over, is going to be equal to the amount of money that I had, the cash on hand that I was playing with, minus the new stock that I just purchased today. So moving forward to tomorrow, I have $16 of cash that I can spend on maybe a sandwich so that we can live long enough to see how our stocks are doing tomorrow. You know, $16, maybe a sandwich and a bag of chips, yeah? So just a quick recap of what I've done and how I've kept track of it. I updated my stock values for today, and then I picked one stock to sell off. For no particular reason, I decided today that I don't trust Tesla anymore, so I sold it off. When I sold off my shares of Tesla, I got back $2,950.80 worth of cash, which I then put into something highly speculative. I bought 164 shares of a vaccine production company at $17.92 a share, making the big bet that maybe they pull it off, and if they do, I have 164 shares of gold instead of 164 shares of something that's worth less than 20 bucks a pop. Does this make, okay, number one, no, this doesn't make sense, but are there any questions on what we're doing or what this project is modeling?
Yeah, I got two questions.
Yes, please.
Okay, one, do you have like any recommendations of like any good stocks to buy around like $430?
And you're saying that you have $430 in the project that you're going to spend that on, not 430 human dollars, right?
No, yeah, in the project.
To be honest with you, and maybe this is getting a more real look at like what smart investment is. And yo, don't listen to me about smart investment just because I'm wearing a banker's shirt. Like you could talk to my wife, I'm broke as hell, but we're working on it, you know? You want the overwhelming majority of your money locked up in things that are safe. So like I have bonds, like I said, that I bought from the California Department of Education when they were selling them off a few years ago. It's a long-term investment, but it's guaranteed and you make a bunch of money back. But like, let's say we're playing with $10,000, which is what this project is. $400 isn't that much money compared to what your total investment is. So if most of your money is in big, safe stocks, like companies that don't fluctuate much over long periods of time, if you're gonna do something with just that $400, you might as well go wild and speculate. I would consider looking up like medical companies. Like, look at the news, find the names of a few medical companies that are working on COVID stuff, either COVID cure, COVID vaccine, or COVID testing. And if some of those stocks are cheap, you might be able to purchase a bunch of shares for nothing. And if one of them pulls off something cool before the end of the school year, that stock value might blow up before the project's over. You said
True.
you had $400-something?
Well, yeah, if I sell all my shares in Nike, I'll have 428. But the thing is, I still have left over like daily change of 317. So do I add that up with the shares that I'm selling from Nike too?
No. Your daily changes when you update all of your stock values. All that's saying is how much money you're worth right now. Like, if you were to theoretically just cash out everything, how much money would you have on hand? So your daily change doesn't matter. That's already factored into everything. When you sell off the Nike, you only get back the Nike money.
Okay, and then I just basically swap it with another one.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. Yeah, so if you have a little bit of money to play with, I don't know, I would look at Novavax or maybe Moderna. Again, I can't tell you how serious I'm being when I say that this information that I'm saying right now is not actual investing advice. I'm not telling you to spend real money. I'm just saying that this is interesting to follow for the sake of project.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, Moderna, Novavax are both in the news because they're working on COVID stuff supposedly, and they have a bunch of big investment money behind them. And if you look at what they're doing today, not that great, but like, look at the 1 month, look at the 6 month.
Yeah, I'm looking at it's only went up.
Yeah, like it took a hit when everybody took a hit, but Novavax is climbing and it's climbing quick. Don't assume it'll work, because like if another company beats them to the vaccine or whatever, then it's going to tank their value. But like I said, it's all just gambling. It's just gambling that rich people do, so it seems fancy. Is this okay?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions on our update for today in the stock project?
Mr. Robinson?
Yeah.
Oh, let me take Mary Ann's question first.
Okay. For the, like, our charts, for the sales, whatever we sell, do we delete it out of the our like original like market stock quantity value like columns before we do the cash on hand, or we just leave it there and then add it to the cash on hand?
So here's a thing that you could do, and this is probably a thing that I should have done. I think this might actually be a more clever way to keep track of it. Though, you know, full disclosure, this is the first time I've ever done this project with a group, so it's kind of like I'm doing my best as I go along. Here might be a smarter way to do it. So because I shouldn't delete the fact that like I had Tesla before. When I sold off Tesla, it was this much, and I had 4 shares of it. So that means when I sold it off, the value was actually 737.7, and I had 4 shares of it before I sold it off. So you can totally just leave it, right? And I can say that this is equal to this times this.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the smartest way to show that you sold it. If you sell it off, then you have 0 of it. So now I can just set that as 0, and then moving forward, I'll remember that I had Tesla, but I sold it off. And when I sold it off, this was the value that it sold off for.
Okay, thank you.
No, it's a really good question. That's actually, that's a smarter way to do this project. Are there any other questions out there?
Yeah, Mr. Rob.
Yep, Jack?
When we do a copy for tomorrow, do we have to put in again, like, that we sold the American, like, let's say I sold my American Airlines, do I have to put it again, or should it just stay for that date?
If you sold off American Airlines, you could just leave it on here. They're AA, right?
AAL.
AAL, yeah. So just leave AAL in here and then just change the quantity to 0, and then that'll be the reminder that you sold it off.
All right, and for the cash on hand, do we keep that, like, all going, since you told us to delete it, like, a day ago or 2 days ago?
Yeah, so the previous day, the only reason why I had us delete it is that we weren't doing anything with cash that day. But yeah, we should keep track of our cash on hand, just because you'll always have that money to reinvest when we do purchasing. So yeah, we'll just leave cash available somewhere. And whatever your final number is for the day, turn it green so that you remember that that's the last cash calculation you had.
Wait, so Mr. Rob, now that I just sold one of my stocks and then I bought something else back, hold on. Yeah, I don't have to like add it onto each other to like change my daily change, right? Or like my percent change.
No, all of that stuff should still remain basically the same. Yeah, all those calculations are still true because this stuff is still a calculation of what your total portfolio is today after all of your swaps. The rest of it is still true. Yeah.
Okay, so I just leave it and I literally only buy another stock, like relatively worth the same amount, right?
If you want to like keep cash on hand, you can. But like I said, the way that you should think about this is not that the $10,000 that I gave you for the project is all of your money. This is the $10,000 that you had left over in your savings that you had to play with and invest, and everything else is taken care of. So in reality, I would never invest away my entire savings account. That's super dangerous and risky. But for the sake of this project, yes, we want to try and keep this entire $10,000 invested.
Okay, gotcha.
Mr. Rob,
Yeah.
the part that I don't understand is the cash.
Yep.
The part that you did in green, where do I get that from?
Oh, so all I did was I sold Tesla, and so I wrote a sell to say how much money I got back from selling Tesla, right?
Okay.
And then I had my cash on hand that I had left over from the beginning of the project because I wasn't able to sell or purchase exactly $10,000 worth of stock. I had $4.09 left over. So I added those two up, right?
Yeah.
And now the new stock that I purchased today was I purchased 164 shares of Novavax at $17.92. And so that purchase went through for $2,938.88. So all I did to generate this column here was I said the amount of cash that I had before the purchase minus the amount of money that I purchased these stocks for, that's equal to how much cash I have left over. And now I have enough money to go buy like 2 Lucky Boy burritos.
Wait, then what if... Okay, so mine, I sold it. The 40 shares came out to $1,412. And then adding that to my cash on hand, I got 1443.57.
Okay.
So then do I now take the 1443 and then subtract it?
It depends on how much, what are you purchasing?
Okay, so I purchased 24 shares in AMD and I sold the 40 shares in eBay.
So, sorry, yeah, so you're purchasing 40 shares of AMD?
Yeah, or no, 24, sorry.
Okay, so AMD is trading at 56.18, so 56.18 times 24.
Oh, I did it at 12 o'clock time. It came out to 57.78 instead.
57.78 times 24. So that means that you're purchasing 1386 worth of stock, right?
Yeah.
So 1443 minus 57, or sorry, 1443.57, which is your cash, minus 1386.72 means that you still have $56.85 in your investment account. So yeah, so it should just be equal to cash minus the amount of money that you purchased AMD for, which leaves you about 56 bucks. You have enough money to buy one video game with no tax.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so that's it for today's update, and then tomorrow we'll leave it alone. I just wanted to force us to do one purchase so that we could look at like what the mechanics of that are. In reality, what would happen is you would put in the request to sell with your broker. If you put in that request at night or whatever, it won't go through until the market opens. So if you have some wild investment idea at like 11 p.m. that one of your idiot friends texts you, you make the request for the purchase to go through, and the thing will just hold that request until the market's open the following morning. And then it'll go through when the market itself opens, which keep in mind is East Coast time. So I think those homies ring the bell at 8 a.m., which means that if you put in a late night purchase, it'll go through at like 5 a.m. Pacific time. The other thing that you can do is you can put in conditional purchases, right? Nope, not that. Nope, that's for later. I'm sorry, guys. I have so many freaking tabs open. Anyway, let's say that you were trying to purchase some of this share, right? And you were like, I want to purchase Novavax, but I want to purchase it when it's cheap. So you can put in a purchase request that says, if Novavax goes below a specific value, that you're like, hey, if this number goes below $16, buy 1,000 shares of it, right? And whatever thing you put in the request for will track the price as it changes live over time. And once it dips below your required value, it'll automatically put the trade through. And if it's possible to make the trade, it will. Though you have to keep in mind that sometimes trades don't go through because you're buying and selling these with other users. So if you were to attempt to sell Novavax when nobody was buying it, then it would take time for the trade to go through. Does that make sense? Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, anyway, so let's go back to just the overhead thingum and tell me, are there any other questions right now about investment or stocks? Is that stuff cool? Yeah? No?
Mr. Rob,
Yeah.
what's the difference between the Amazon stock that's AMZN and then the AMZN.BA?
Oh, okay. And this is probably more detail that we don't hella have to get into, but there are Class A stocks and there are Class B stocks. And this is like very much getting into the weeds.
Like Berkshire Hathaway, right?
Yeah,
B.
Berkshire Hathaway is probably the big one that has a Class A and a Class B, because their Class A stock is the one that's worth $250,000 a share, and the Class B stock is only worth like $5 or $6 a share. The main difference between those two types of stocks, and I mean, this is really weird stuff. When you have Class A stock, it gives you the ability to vote in a company. So if they're like, hey, we're choosing a new CEO and we need our shareholders to vote on who they want the new CEO to be, you are voting with your shares, right? So that's why you have to sometimes consider the total number of shares that exist, because the number of shares that you have give you voting power out of that fraction. Though usually in a company, there are millions of shares available, which is to say that your vote is most likely insignificant unless you yourself own thousands or hundreds of thousands of shares.
Yeah, because like Amazon has some. There's one that's .mx, and that one's almost 60,000 per share. But then there's the regular one that's $23.95.
Yeah, so the regular one, the Class A stock, is the one that gives you voting power in a company. I don't know what Amazon.mx would be.
They have like, they have 10 shares on, like if you check the Amazon stocks app, or sorry, Apple stocks app.
That's a really good question. I don't have the answer to your question, but if I learn it over the next few days, I will come back to this.
Okay.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
For the daily change, is it total investment minus yesterday's value or yesterday's value minus total investment?
It's total value minus yesterday's value, so that if you gain money, the difference is positive, and then if you lose money, the difference is negative.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good question. I made that mistake the other day myself, and I had to swap it a few times. So if you got down the wrong equation, I don't blame you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So then on the third page, do we put the yesterday's value as the total investment from the day before?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Every day we'll have to update that one by hand. There is a way to do it with equations, but I think that would be too.
But Mr. Rob, will you see the edited version?
No. So you are keeping track of your own for a few weeks, and then you'll turn in the sheet to me at the end. So I just wanted you to turn in that initial one, and then later when I want to check how you've been doing, you can show me the final sheet after we have like 2 or 3 weeks of data.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I got one last question.
No, it's good. What's up?
Okay, so on my very, very first sheet, I do have cash on hand, but after that, I'm just not putting cash on hand. Should I put it on or not?
Just keep track of it every day. And, you know, if you go back to a previous day and there's no cash on hand sheet, that means there was no change to your cash. So you would just go back another page until you found the most recent cash update.
So if I, can I start my video and share my screen and ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. I believe by default you can't share your screen, and I'm trying to find the setting that lets me let you share your screen.
I think I can just start a video and then flip the camera.
Yeah, there's a button that says share content.
Yeah, but I think if you click it, it won't let you, right?
Let's see.
Go ahead, try to share screen.
Let's see. Share content. Yeah, I can't share my screen.
Audic, I just saw your face.
Yeah.
That was his webcam, but he wants to share his screen.
I mean, maybe I could just start the video and then just flip the camera. Would that work?
Sure, yeah, if you want to just point your screen at your Excel sheet.
Yeah.
Or point your camera at your Excel sheet. Yeah, what's up?
How do I flip it? That's the thing. Oh, okay, it's up here. Yeah, okay, so right here, this is like day one. I don't know if you can see well. My cash on hand is 36.5. And then I go over here to day two, and I have a daily change of 294. Should I add that along to my cash on hand? And then
No. So just because that's your portfolio value.
Okay.
So all that's saying is that today you're worth $272 more than you were the day before, but that $272 is still tied up in the stock market.
Okay.
And if you want to make that money and put that money in your pocket to spend on goods, you would have to sell off the stocks that had gained that value.
Yeah.
So you can totally watch your stock value go up and down and be like, oh boy, I'm worth $5,000 more than I was yesterday if you have like really good gains over one night. But you have to keep in mind that that $5,000 isn't money that you can just spend. It is tied up in the stock market and it's not yours until you sell.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, so that's not part of cash on hand. That's just us checking the health of our portfolio from day to day.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Excellent. Good stuff. Okay, so here is what we are going. Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any other questions on that stuff today before we move along? Item 2 of our warm-up. Any questions about this stuff that we're doing?
Actually, Mr. Up, from day to day, do you want us to just replace from like yesterday's my chart to today's, or you want us to write a new one from day to day?
Every single day that you do this will produce a new Excel sheet with the date. So if you look at my example, I'm already on my 3rd day of the project. So I have a date that goes with 4/14, 4/15, and 4/16. And when you are done, this will have a bunch of dates all along the bottom. I better be able to go back and check your progress. Otherwise, it won't be very good in terms of the final grade.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have 2 quick questions.
Yes.
So the only thing you're switching day to day is yesterday's value, and then everything else, and like obviously the values for the stocks, but everything else does it like with the equation, right?
Yep, that's the power of Excel.
And for the cash on hand, I'm just kind of confused on that again, because the first day when I did it, I made enough money to like cover that.
No, like I said, you're thinking about it wrong. So you didn't make any money. That's not what the daily change is, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so the cash on hand stays like that.
The cash on hand stays like that unless you sell stock. That's the only thing that will put cash back into your pocket. And I'm actually really glad we're doing this because the questions that you guys are asking are all really smart. This is stuff that you should understand. So here in my example sheet, right, my daily change right now is $166.90. Now that does not mean that I have 166 more actual dollars. What it means is that compared to yesterday, if you add up all of the value in my stock, right now, right now I have $1,144.53 invested in the stock market, whereas yesterday I only had $9,977.63. The reason why this number is bigger is that overnight, most of my stocks became slightly more valuable, but this $166 of increase, this is not in your pocket. This is here. It's invested in the stock market. And if you wanted this cash, if you wanted to play with this $10,000, including that extra 144, you'd have to sell your stocks off.
Oh, okay.
The way that you convert, and the phrase that we use is liquidity. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that word before. Liquidity is cash that you are allowed to transfer around. This is not really a liquid investment. If you wanted to turn this into liquidity, you would have to sell off your stock the same way I sold off my Tesla today.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, tight. It's a really good question.
Oh, actually, one more question. Sorry. For the selling the stock, sorry, I came like 10 minutes late. You just didn't. So you put 0 for the quantity, and you just added the value from all the days.
No, you don't add the value from the days. So when you sell a stock off, you sell it for however much it's worth. So if you invest in a thing and you lose a bunch of money on it, and then you sell it off for less than you bought it, all of that money is gone forever. There is no getting it back, right? But what I had is, before you came in, I had 4 shares of Tesla, and today it was worth $737.70. So when I sold off those 4 shares, I sold them off at this amount. So this is the total. After I sold them, I no longer had them, so I changed the quantity to 0. But I then took that money and I used it to purchase 164 shares of this other company, right? So I had $2,954. I sold that off. I'm sorry, I used that money to purchase $2,938 worth of Novavax. So now I have $16 left over.
Oh, okay, thank you. And should we keep the 0 one for the next day or no?
Yes, I actually want you to do that just to keep track of what stocks you had, because this was worth $737 today. If we move to tomorrow and Tesla's price goes up, I want you to track that, because that means it was a mistake to sell.
Oh, okay, thank you. Because
It's a big
last night
bummer.
I was just looking at it and I was like getting so agitated because I didn't know how to do it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. If you ever have a question, just post it to Classroom, like on the wall, and I'll answer it.
Thank you.
Or honestly, since we're having a daily chat like this, and this is all that the class is now, is us just like hanging out and working on these financial projects, just write it down on a sticky note and ask during the class, because to be real, these questions are probably more valuable than the direct instruction.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm now going to share with y'all a sheet. And we're going to talk now about personal budgeting, which is a more sensitive topic. And so for like the only time that you'll probably ever hear this from an instructor, I'm going to give you a homework assignment, and I'm going to go ahead and demand that you don't turn it in. Now, the reason why I don't want you to turn in this homework assignment is the simple fact that I am not going to look at your personal finances. If you turn in and your personal budget, I won't read it. I will just delete it. I don't want to know what your income is. None of that stuff. That does not interest me. I don't want to know how much money you make from investments. I just want you to do this. And then I'm going to ask you if you did it. And as long as the answer to that question when I ask you is yes, you will get full credit. Because this is a thing that I want you to do for yourself. I want you to make a copy of this template that I'm sending to you, just because this is one of the like better templates that I could find online in terms of a personal budget. And I want you to fill it out for August, which is, take a wild guess why I would have you start filling out this budget in August.
When coronavirus ends, hopefully.
I like that. That's a very optimistic answer. That's not the answer that I'm looking for. Could I have anybody else guess?
School starts.
That's the one, because by then, most of y'all will be moved on to a college, whether it's community or 4-year, right? And so what I want you to think about is what your budget's going to look like when you are out on your own. Or if you're not out on your own, that's actually tight too, because that means that your rent is probably close to $0. 10. This is going to be due on Saturday. 10 p.m. And like I said, don't turn it in. Okay, so if y'all could go to Google Classroom, do me a favor, go to the assignment section, and you should see a new project posted. It's called Personal Budget. I posted a link there to Google Drive, which I was having issues getting, because this isn't my template. I'm sharing somebody else's template with you. It should work. I don't see why it wouldn't, but check that link, see if it works, and if it doesn't, holler at me.
It just says we need permission.
What email account is it associated with? Is it with my personal or with my work email?
I don't know. It says I'm signed in on my Gmail account when I click on it, but on Classroom, I'm
Same thing.
logged in.
You click
Oh,
switch it.
you know what? You know what? No. I figured it out. It's my fault. It's my fault. Wait, I'm going to update the assignment real quick. I'm going to delete the link. I'm going to replace it with a different link. Now I'm going to hit save. Okay. So refresh your page, and then you should see the link change. Try that new link. I think I fixed it. And then let me take my jacket off. I don't even know why I'm wearing a freaking jacket at home. I'm like, I have nobody to impress. It's just you guys looking at me on YouTube. Or, oh, I did an old man thing. I said that any internet video streaming service was YouTube. No, this is Zoom. It's just going to get backed up to YouTube later. Hey, anyway. Oh, yuck. The striped shirt does that gross video effect where it like shimmers as I move, right? I will never wear this shirt on stream again. Okay, so do y'all see that personal budget?
Yep.
Okay, so here's what this is, and this is one of the most simple budget spreadsheets. This is just an adder and a subtractor. All it's going to do is it's going to take the numbers that you put into it, and it's going to add up the income, and then from that, it's going to subtract the home expenses, everything in blue, and that's going to tell you what your net income is for that month. Now, for most of y'all, this is going to be some really basic stuff, and I want to talk about that, which is why we're doing it. But here's why we are bothering with this and why we're kind of doing it in this order, right? So if you want to make investing, oh, my webcam crashed. Okay, it went back to my document camera, right? Yeah?
I don't know. We still see you.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to have money to invest, then that means your net income for the month needs to be positive. So your net income on any given month, net income, where keep in mind in math, net is just a fancy way of saying total, right? Net income is equal to the amount of money that you bring in every month, your income, minus the amount of money that you spend every month, which we call expenses. So this number, and I know this is basic stuff, I just want to get this down because, this is like business, or business stuff, day one. You want your net income to be positive, which simply means that the amount of money that you're making in any given month is greater than your expenses. And if you are having positive net income, if you are bringing cash in, this is how you make it so that you have extra cash to invest. And it's one of the hardest things to do because the world is not set up to make this easy, especially not for new young people entering the market. But if you have more income than you have expenses, that gives you extra cash on hand, which you can invest in the market. And when you invest money in the market and you do it right, then you can increase the amount of money that you have without just getting money from work. The amount of money that you get from working, honestly, it's a pittance compared to what you can make investing, especially as long as you invest wisely. Do things that are safe, do things that are long-term. However, your net income will be negative if your expenses are greater than your income. And this is problematic for two reasons. You have no extra cash to invest, which means that you can't make interest work in your favor. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to put money in that savings account and I'm going to get that free 1% of money back on my savings account every month, right? Not only can you not take advantage of good interest, but guess what tends to happen to people in this situation?
Their stocks go bad, and then they have to try and pay that off as well too. So
Oh no, we're not even talking about stocks. I'm not talking about businesses. I'm talking about you and your personal money.
Your interest gets higher.
It's not just that the interest gets higher. If you have net negative income, that means that it costs more to live your life than you are making in money. Typically, people in this situation fall into debt. People have to take out a loan against the home. People have to put stuff onto credit cards and just live off of the credit card instead of being able to make off your monthly payment, right? And when that happens, then instead of interest working in your favor, when you fall into debt, interest works against you. And the really crazy thing for the most part in terms of like being a consumer in this economy is that when interest works in your favor, it's not that good. Savings accounts are usually less than 1% of interest working in your favor. Investing in bonds takes 10 years before you can cash out. And even then, that interest is over the long term, maybe 30% interest acting in your favor. And anything other than that is gambling, right? Like playing the stock market, you could gain or you could lose. So there's no way to tie that down to like what your percentage is going to be on your investments. But credit cards are brutal. Credit cards are usually 30% interest acting against you a month, or in a lot of cases, even worse than that. It is really important to manage your personal finances just to make sure that your net income every month ideally is positive, though that probably won't be the case for the most part while you're in college, just because you have to go to class. You can't work full time. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, this is okay? I know this is basic stuff. I just want to make sure that like you have the basic vocab to talk about this stuff. So when you're talking about how much money you're making by the end of the month, that's net income, where income is defined as being equal to your income, the amount of money that you're taking in, minus the amount of expenses that you have to live your life. Right now, your expenses are probably pretty simple, but as you move on, both your income streams and your expenses will become more and more complicated. The goal is to get to this point where net income is positive so that you can invest that extra money and make the money work for you instead of having the interest on your money work against you. Now, there are some basic ways that you can make your budget more efficient. And of course, if you're looking at that Excel sheet, fine, look at it. But let me talk about some basic ways that you can get that balance to work in your favor. Net income being positive or not negative is always a question of income versus expenses. And in terms of income, what you want to do is you want to maximize that income. We obviously want to increase this as much as possible to get your net income to be favorable for you, but that also means that you want to try and decrease your expenses. You want to make that number as small as you can. Let's go ahead and talk about your income first. What are some ways that you can increase your income? Some basic ways.
Getting a job.
I love that. Get a job, you bum.
Yep.
No, I'm just kidding. Y'all aren't bums. You're just high school students. But yeah, getting a job is the most straightforward way that you can increase your income. And just some stuff that y'all don't know about getting a job. This is why I had y'all do those resumes. And like I said, even if you get past that second draft of your resume, I went in and after I graded them, I gave some feedback. But if you like did another update to it, which I already helped one person go through her third draft, I think one of y'all I helped with. If you ever want me to look at it again, just hit me up. I'll like fix it up and give it back to you so that you can use it to help get that job. When you apply to jobs, you usually do it online. You know where some really good jobs are available for you next year?
College campus.
Thank you. Campus jobs. Campus careers are really good. They can put you in some good situations, So number one, they're available to college students on that campus and college students on that college campus only, which means instead of competing with a bunch of people who need work, you're only competing with the other students, and it's not that hard to get those positions. And depending on the way that they pay you, they might be able to legally avoid some taxes. So like at UCLA, when you do student work, the money gets paid directly to your tuition before any additional money gets paid to you. So you might not end up with very much cash to take home afterwards, but because it's being paid directly into your tuition, it's not taxed like regular income, which we'll talk about income tax and marginal tax rates probably the top of next week so that you can think about that. And just so you know, it's not trivial. Income tax is a big chunk of your money taken out before your check ever gets to you. By working certain on-campus jobs, you can legally avoid paying that income tax because instead of the money going directly to you, it gets paid to your tuition first, and all of that money goes in untaxed. These campus jobs that they have available to you are regular stuff. They could be food service on campus. My study job at UCLA was I worked at the cafe making coffee for students and professors. However, they can take a lot of different forms. If you're going directly to a big four-year university, I might have talked about this before, but one of the best on-campus jobs that you can get is you can be a resident advisor, which is fire. Mostly because being a resident advisor does two things at once. Oh my God, I can't, oh God, my brain. Resident advisor, also known as an RA, does two things. It does two things. Being an RA increases your income, but it also decreases your expenses. Have I talked about being a resident advisor before, or have you guys heard of this position on college campuses?
Isn't
Yes.
think like campus living or whatever free for RAs?
It is, yeah, and that's why it both pays money and it decreases your expenses. So just a quick overview of what it is to be an RA. If you are at a four-year college that has dormitories, they need older kids to like live in the dorms and take care of the younger kids. Basically to like shut down parties, pour out everybody's bottles, or like if the kids get locked out of their rooms, they text you and they're like, hey, I locked my kid in my room, could you come let me in? Because you have the master key to everybody's rooms and stuff, right? Now, to get yourself into one of these RA positions, they're pretty competitive just because there's such a good deal financially. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have like student government experience. So those of you who are already doing student government stuff, that puts you in an ideal position to become an RA. When you get to your college, you want to be involved in building government because the dorms will have a structure the same way that student government does for our campus. Because in four-year universities, one dorm building is bigger than our whole school in a lot of cases. So like the government or building government can be in charge of like 300 kids living in one building. And your job is to basically do the same thing that student government does, but for the kids that live in that dorm. So organize fun events like dances or whatever, or field trips, or whatever you can do with your building government budget. But if you're a good member your first and second year, you can usually apply to the campus to become an RA, either your junior or your junior and senior year. And here's the gig, right? The problem with being an RA is that you can't usually leave campus unless you have permission. Like there always has to be at least one RA in the building, which is why it's 4 people so that you are on call one weekend and you just rotate who does what weekend, right? But while you're an RA, you get a check, right? You get your regular old paycheck and it's a work campus job. So that means that, you get that homie tax situation where the money is being paid directly into your tuition before you get any of the extra leftover. But on top of that, RAs, rent is covered, and so is their food. So if you're an RA, man, you go to your little personal finance budgeting sheet, and you make rent $0, you make food $0. It's huge in terms of your monthly planning. Is that okay?
My
Yes.
sister's friend group made one of their friends become an RA, so like they'll have more advantages and stuff.
I mean, I won't talk about it on stream, but it definitely pays to be homies with an RA. First-hand experience living at UCLA, Hitch dorms, 2008 to 2009. I'm sorry, 2008 to 2008 to 2009. Yeah, it is tight knowing an RA. That stuff aside, are there any other questions on increasing your income? Because in terms of like legal income sources, you could get a job. Past that, you can also get a gig. And you can also have investments paying you out. But those are really the only three income sources. You either have a job that pays you normally, you have a gig where you look for little work here and there that you can do, like past teaching. Whenever I have extra time, I also tutor, which is pretty good income, anywhere from like $60 to $100 an hour, depending on the topic. Though, of course, this is hard to schedule consistently, so this number is not the same every month. And then in terms of investments, it's also really hard to tell when you are going to make money off of them. You only make money off of your investments if they're in the stock market when you sell them off, or if you happen to get paid out a dividend, or if you have certain types of investments that pay out the interest every month. You may also have access to that, which if you are lucky enough to have something like that, like a trust fund, in that personal finance sheet that I gave y'all, there's a spot for that in income. You could just add interest income and know what that amount is every month. Are there any other questions on the income part of this, on ways to increase your income? Okay, so yeah, increasing your income, really just three things that are significant in terms of income. One, get a job, and if you need help with that, hit me up. Two, get a gig. That's a little bit tougher unless you have some specialized skill, but there's always gig work to do. Maybe not right now since people can't go outside, but think about it. If there is a thing you can do on the side to earn additional income, it's better to spend that time making money than not. And then number three, if you are fortunate enough to have investments, consider those as part of your income streams. When it comes to decreasing your expenses, there's also a lot of things that you can do there. And this is one of those things where it might not feel significant, but over long periods of time, decreasing your expenses, that stuff adds up really, really quickly, especially over the course of like a full year. You'll notice that attempting to decrease your expenses helps a ton. What are some basic ways that you can decrease your expenses, that you can just like learn to live cheaper?
Eat out less.
That's the big one, simply because food is really expensive. So eat out less. And now let's go ahead and do a really basic comparator here, right? In terms of, and the calculation that I'm about to do is about to be really rough, but I think it drives the point home. So we live in Los Angeles, where a restaurant meal, like a reasonable priced one, is like $15. If you're talking about a sit-down restaurant like a deli or whatever, then you might be talking about $20 or more. But like, I don't know, you shouldn't be eating Nobu every day where like one meal is $400. So I don't think it's reasonable to use that kind of cost analysis, right? But let's say that you're living a life where you're eating at a restaurant for every meal, and just to average it out, it's going to be $18 a meal, right? On average, over the course of 1 week, right? That's 7 days, and you eat 3 meals a day on average. So that would be 7 times 21. And then there's 4 weeks in a month, so it'll be 4 times 7 times 21, which is to say that in a month, you eat about 588 meals. Does that math check out with y'all? Is that okay? So 7 days a week, 3 meals a day, and 4 weeks in a month. Oh no, I'm sorry. I had one number too many in there. Yeah. So 28 days a month, 3 meals a day. Sorry, yeah, 84 meals a month. So 84 meals per month. I mean, maybe now that we're all at home, maybe now we're eating 550 meals a month. But nonetheless, this means that if you eat at a restaurant for every single one of your meals, which I knew people like that in college, and I was always like, man, where are you getting the money from? This makes your food budget about $1,500 per month. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
If your whole life is Grubhub, man, that's $1,500 per month. Now, let me go ahead and show you one of my favorite staple meals for college. And of course, this is just so that we can try and pin down the cost of how valuable it is to teach yourself how to cook. This is just for example. I'm not saying you should eat this meal for every meal. This is just a way that we can show that groceries are cheaper. One of my favorite staple meals in college is the following. Trader Joe's cornbread mix is bomb as hell. You just add eggs, oil, and water, and then bake it. So one component of this meal. Next component of this meal is the protein. So Trader Joe's, and this has suddenly become a Trader Joe's commercial. Trader Joe's pre-seasoned pollo asado, delicious. It's just chicken, right? A can of black beans, a bag of brown rice, all from Trader Joe's. And the way that I made this meal normally is I would bake the cornbread, right? Cook the chicken, make the rice, and then in the same pot that the rice is in, add the black beans to that and just mix it together. So the meal itself is a piece of the cornbread, some of the chicken, this black bean and rice mixture, and then whatever fruits and veggies I had, like a salad mix or whatever, and then like a LaCroix or water or some other cheap beverage. I think that is a reasonable meal. And the reason why I bring this up is that that was before I was like good at cooking. So I assert if you went and bought those ingredients, you could prepare this meal competently. Like you wouldn't burn it, you wouldn't destroy it. It would come out as delicious food with minimum effort. Like this whole meal, and it makes 4 servings, right? It takes about 40 minutes to prepare. You toss the leftovers in Tupperware and you're good to go. So in terms of that stuff, right? This is chicken. That bag of chicken is about $9. The cornbread mix is about $2. The bag of rice is about $4. And then that can of beans was about $1. And then if you want to have a drink on the side, like a LaCroix, that type of like canned beverage, if you're buying like the big racks or whatever, cheap, like 50 cents. And, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to put the price for 4 of these. So $2 for beverages so that we can, you know, have fancy fizzy drinks. And so that is to say here that if you are making basic meals with basic groceries, this is $18, but for 4 meals. So that means that instead of paying 18 bucks a meal for restaurant food or for delivery, groceries are about $18 for 4 meals, which is to say you can survive on 1/4 the amount of money that you had before. So $1,500 divided by 4 means that you're going to be spending $375 a month on groceries, which is about right. When I was in college, I was living off of about $325 to $350 of grocery bucks a month. So that means that this is $375, $375 per month, savings of more than $1,000. Not only is cooking fun and easy, and I'll post some links to YouTube channels that I like. I don't know if you've seen Bon Appetit, but Bon Appetit is some excellent cooking content.
It's owned by BuzzFeed.
Huh?
It's owned by BuzzFeed.
No, don't ruin. Don't ruin. Don't tell me stuff like that. I don't need to. Okay. Learning to cook can save you almost $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year, and it's just a useful skill to have in general. Food is usually the place where people are bleeding money and they just don't realize it. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't treat yourself. I just don't think it's financially responsible to treat yourself 3 times a day, 28 days a month. Is this okay? Is this all right so far?
Yep.
Okay, so we're not quite done with this because I want to talk about some other ways that one could reasonably decrease expenses without like I'm not saying you go live at the park in a tent, right? Like I'm not saying, oh, we're going to get rid of rent. There are certain expenses which cannot be gotten rid of, right? But tomorrow we'll talk about some other reasonable ways that you can decrease your expenses. And a lot of the time people aren't willing to do this because they're like, oh, you know, $18 to go to the restaurant, that's not that much money. It'll save me some time, I guess. But when you like sit down and you crunch the numbers and you realize that, hey, if I get good at this, if I get consistent at this, it can add up over time. That's the part that's really hard for the human brain to like realize unless somebody forces you to sit down and look at the digits. One other note, tomorrow when we come in, we'll talk about other ways to decrease our expenses. And we'll also take a look at that budget planning sheet that I gave everybody. And I'll fill it out with some sample data just because I know that like for most of y'all, a bunch of these will be zeros. Now, the nice thing about it is that after you fill out, and like I said, the first one you should fill out is starting in August. So try and figure out what you think your college expenses are gonna be. The nice thing about it is that unless stuff changes, guess how you fill out the other columns? Once you fill out your first month, for the most part, kids, you can just copy paste that money over because your money situation is going to be more or less the same every single month. Like every single month, your tuition will be the same. Every single month, your rent will be the same. Your utilities bills tend to be the same. Your paycheck is usually the same as long as you're getting the same amount of hours on any given month. So you might have to touch that up from month to month, right? But once you do this one time and you get those numbers right, it's easy to keep track of your finances because you're just going to take that column and copy paste it over month to month. In my own personal finance Excel sheet, which of course I won't show my students, it's really simple. I literally just take my money stuff, I copy paste it over to the next month, and I adjust the numbers that need to be adjusted. I adjust my little row that has my tutoring money. I adjust my little row that has my investments. I adjust my student loans, which I'm about to pay off. Those are the only things that have to get recalculated from month to month. Is this okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, if this is like all, okay, this is all stuff that I think is pretty obvious, but then again, I'm about to turn 30 this year. This is the kind of stuff that I wish somebody sat me down and like made me look at. It seems self-evident, and I know that this is probably vocab that you've like had go past your ears before, but you've never probably fit all the pieces together. It's all part of one big picture, right? Your own personal finances, your own personal financial health. Oh yeah, I totally forgot. I had one more thing I wanted to mention, and then I'll let you guys go for today, and then we'll take our break before we go to snack, or we'll take our break before we come back to third period, I mean. That budgeting Excel sheet that I gave you, that's free. I didn't make it. You're welcome. But in case you get to a point in your life where your finances are more complicated, like if you find yourself at the age of 30 and you're like, oh crap, I own a house and I have all this money tied up in the stock market, and you just kind of get to a point where your finances are changing rapidly and you can't track it anymore, here's some professional budgeting stuff that you can use. One of the most common budgeting apps that people use, and if you don't want to be doing this junk on an Excel sheet, install Mint. It's a phone app that does basically the same thing. And I think it's free for the level of functionality that you would need it to do, since your like college person finances are probably relatively straightforward. Mint is a pretty good phone app that will do it. Personal Capital is another phone app that will do it. And this is the one that I'm most fond of. It's called YNAB, Y-N-A-B, and it's just called You Need a Budget. You Need a Budget is really cool, and they used to sell it on Steam. It's not a video game, but they used to sell it on Steam, and I don't know why it got taken off the Steam market, but my copy, I still launch it through Steam. So if you're friends with me on Steam and it says Mr. Robinson is playing YNAB, it means I'm managing my budget. But it's just a thing that you can put on your computer. It also syncs with an app on your phone so that if you like do something out in the world and you're like, oh, I spent too much money at this restaurant, I should punch that in. You can update it from your phone and it'll update on your computer. You Need a Budget is just a piece of software that you can pay for that tracks your money over time. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll see you all tomorrow for personal finance again, and we will talk about other ways that you can reasonably decrease your expenses. without sacrificing your like standards of living. And then we will get into talk about different types of debt that you can fall into, and especially we'll talk what's the most important one for y'all next year.
Student loans.
We are going to talk about student loans, what the rules are for all those types of debt, how to calculate how much that stuff will cost you in the long run, and why it is you want to avoid that, especially early on. Y'all have a nice day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Arbitra.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.